This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Welcome into the Sports Source Digital Network. This is our big orange bracket party. I'm John Pennington, joined by former Vol coach, former UNC basketball player, former Charlotte Hornet executive Buzz Peterson.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Former Vol assistant coach, former Milwaukee basketball player Mark Pankratz. And we have four more people waiting off set, ready to jump in here and talk about Tennessee's bracket setup, which came out Sunday night. We're taping this Sunday night. You're watching it Monday or sometime after that. So we haven't had a ton of time to break this thing down. But as you've seen by now, Tennessee got the 6th seed in the Midwest. That means they will be playing Friday and Sunday, starting in Philadelphia. They'll get the winner of SMU, Miami of Ohio. Of course, everybody was talking about Miami and whether they should get in. In terms of the overall seed list, Tennessee came in at number 21, which we talked about on the Sports Source, that they were 21. North Carolina wound up being number 22, and they got VCU, who you didn't want. These two teams are 43 and 44 on the seed list. Whether that's a real 44, I don't know about that, but we'll leave that for another time. Let's start with this. Thoughts on Philadelphia? You could have gotten Greenville, South Carolina. The other one you'd been tossed to or talked about was Portland, Oregon. I'll take Philadelphia. They got direct flights out of Knoxville, I believe. Thoughts on Philadelphia as a starting point?
Well, you're always going to play in a big arena, and then sometimes it can make it difficult for shooting and everything, so the background's farther away. But pretty different styles, and SMU is going to look to push it, and you got another team that likes a lot of half-court offensive sets.
Do you like the fact, Mark, that, well, tell me if it's a concern. I would see this as a problem, the fact that Tennessee and their coaching staff is not just, like, if you're Virginia, you're already doing your scout on Wright State right now. If you're Tennessee, you're having to have somebody work on SMU and somebody work on Miami of Ohio. Is that a big issue?
It's not a big issue from the standpoint of the staff is typically are so big these days that they've got a certain staff members are going to focus in on SMU, certain staff members are going to focus on Miami of Ohio. And Coach knows you even have a couple guys that are already focused on Virginia and Wright State in preparation for a quick turnaround. So from that standpoint, a coach's perspective, not a big deal. But from a player's perspective, players want to know who they're going to play against. They want to know the guys that they're going to guard. They want to know the style of play that they're going to have to prepare for. So I think from a player's perspective, it is a little bit harder. But I like the fact that it gives Nate some extra rest, playing on a Friday, not playing on a Thursday. Even though I'll give up that day of more, or have that day of more rest, even if it doesn't mean that we know we're playing right away.
Okay. In terms of the bracket itself, Georgia, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, it's the way of the world now that the power conferences are gobbling up all of the NCAA tournament. But I'm not a big fan of having, once you get through the play-in games, you're going to have 4 of your 16 teams out of the same conference. Mark, you talked about this on the Sunday show, the fact that you look at Kentucky in the second game, you lost. Alabama the second game, lost. Vandy, second game, lost. Did beat Auburn in the second go-around. But in terms of seeing teams again, that hasn't worked well for the Vols so far.
It hasn't, and it's a concern of mine if we were to go up against a team again. For me, our team's playing better because of the health that we have of Nate Ament. Now, how does that go moving forward? To be determined. Seeing all these SEC teams, I do like getting a matchup to Kentucky. If somehow, some way we're able to face them in the Sweet 16, we had them beat 2 times in a row. They ended up coming back. I like the fact that we could close a deal on that one. But when there's a lot of SEC teams, I'd rather have, and look, I went to Wisconsin, Milwaukee, the hyphenated name. I like the mid-majors being able to be all over the NCAA
Makes
tournament.
it fun.
Well, and as Mark pointed out, of course, this could be a repeat of last year. Tennessee right here, Kentucky down here. You could wind up. Same thing. Tennessee lost the 2 games to Kentucky in the regular season last year and then beat them in the Sweet 16 to go to the Elite 8. History could repeat itself. And I think a lot of Tennessee fans, if that worked out, I think once again you'd trade the 2 losses in the regular season for that one. In terms of other things that stand out about this bracket for you, let's just look at the bottom half with Tennessee. And I'm going to have you two break down this first-round matchup a little bit later. So let's just look right through here. In terms of Virginia, we went through a bunch of these teams on the Sports Source. Virginia wasn't the one that scared anybody. Here's the thing. That doesn't mean it's easy, but there are other 3 seeds that you could have drawn that would have scared me more than Virginia. You follow North Carolina.
They came up a little bit to me. I didn't have them as a third, but out of their last 15 games, they've won 13 of it. One team has beaten them. I'll say Durham, a team over in Durham, North Carolina, has beaten them. So they've done a great job. Coach Odom has brought in some transfers. They're upperclassmen from San Francisco, and the kid is pretty good. They got a young freshman point guard out of Charlottesville. And then they had the big kid that was at Kentucky. I can't even pronounce his last name. He was there a couple years ago. They had 7 block shots in the ACC tournament, which is a record.
Mark, your thoughts?
Virginia, of all the threes, I'll take a Virginia in the 3 spot. Even at the 2, I think Iowa State and TJ, their coach, does a great job. But that's a 2 that I like compared to a UConn. UConn, although they've lost a couple games, they scare me with their toughness that they can match us on the offensive rebounding. But when I look up and down this bracket, I like the Georgia-St. Louis game. I think that's a game with an SEC team that Coach Shirts and what they do and what he did at LMU. That's going to be an interesting matchup to me that I think St. Louis can pull out against Georgia.
Man, he got a big raise to stay at St. Louis just this week, as a matter of fact. Buzz, any of the games that popped to you?
Texas Tech, Akron. You've got 2 good point guards. Christian Anderson's coming back for Texas Tech, and Johnson for Akron is a very good player. Small little point guard, gets very quick. So that would be a fun matchup to watch those guards.
Thoughts on Kentucky and Santa Clara?
Ooh, Santa Clara's a good team. Herb Sendek's been around a long time. Lost in the finals to the Gonzaga. Finished 3rd in the regular season. They've got some young kids inside, and Graves and a point guard Hammonds is pretty good, but they are a very good team. That's nothing that Kentucky just can look over. They'd be aware of.
Yeah, if Kentucky doesn't get locked in on their shot selection, I think they take some ill-advised shots at times, and I think Santa Clara can get out and run if they get some long rebounds and go.
He's a very good coach. I'll tell you that.
Any other coaches that stand out to you in this list?
There's some good ones. Nolan Smith at Tennessee State. That's
getting in for the first time since 1994.
Yeah, got the job late. We were talking about earlier, so I'm happy for him. TJ is a very good coach. There's some very good coaches in this whole bracket.
I like Alabama. I know they're the 4th seed and they should get to the Sweet 16. But Alabama and I know a lot of people don't like Nate Oates when you start talking about coaches. But I think he's got some playmakers that can really put together a long run in this NCAA tournament. I know Michigan has had an incredible year, but I'd love to see that Michigan-Alabama matchup for a chance to move on because I think Alabama could go for a long run.
You would think Michigan's had a little chip on their shoulder, losing the Big Ten championship games. They're going to be a little hungry.
You look at this, and we talked about this on the Sunday show as well. There were some of those matchups that were projected, Gonzaga's a 3. Against you in Portland, Oregon. There were some nightmare scenarios. There were some groups of death.
Illinois is a 3 that we wouldn't want to see.
Yes, you don't want any part of that. But when you look at this, I'm not saying it's an easy road for Tennessee, especially the way they closed the year, losing 3 of their last 4. But if you gave me a top 3 of Michigan, Iowa State, Virginia, I'd take that
all day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's not a bad bracket.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I also don't mind the Philadelphia thing because that's not a terrible trip.
Yeah, I think when you're in this 6-11 game, and as a coach, as you know, once you get to play the teams that are higher seed than you, like playing a 3 seed or a 2 seed, kind of playing with house money. You're not supposed to win anyways. But when these coaches, as you know, look at an SMU and a Miami of Ohio team, and you know how good they are, but when your fan base thinks, it's just Miami, Ohio,
right.
It's just SMU, that's scary. And your players can think that too, because they know a Michigan, they know an Iowa State. They don't know how good an SMU Miami Ohio team is, and we'll talk about it later, but that's the matchup that scares me.
John, something that's interesting, this whole thing I heard earlier, 17 out of 31 top teams in their conference lost in their conference tournament. 17 out of 31, which is kind of significant.
Yeah, surprising. Interesting bracket for the Vols, 6, which was what was expected this morning. Everybody had them as a 6. They were indeed the number 21 seed, the top of the 6 line. And they get the Friday, Sunday, as we said, in Philadelphia. If you've never been to Philadelphia and seen a game there, the interesting thing is they've got it's really unique. They've got all 3 of them right there together. You get the basketball arena, the baseball stadium, football stadium, all right there together.
It will be cold on that court, I promise.
Their parking's still probably better than UT's parking. They've got 3 stadiums right there.
You'll have to talk to Danny White about that. All right. Tell you what, let's kick it over to Tyler Ivins and our other 3 guests.
John, we appreciate it. Inside the lounge right here at the Sports Source Digital Network studios. We've got the madness here. Let's take a look at Philadelphia and the University of Tennessee and how their path to Indianapolis begins. Chuck Cavaleris alongside Riley Halton with us over at 99.1 The Sports Animal. Bob Hodge joining us on the very end of the set, the 4 of us. Bob, let's get started with you. Your initial reaction. For the longest time, Tennessee's on the 4 line. Then they stumbled quite a bit in February. That's the 5 line. Then you have a rough going in Nashville against Vanderbilt. Other teams are being upset around conference championship weekend, and people go, whoa. We're probably talking about a 6 seed. It's all said and done. Not only do you get the 6 seed, might have been a surprise, maybe not a surprise, but now you got to wait an extra day to find out who your opponent's going to be. You get sit in the 11 seed play-in game between SMU alongside the Cinderella that is Miami of Ohio.
You know, I was surprised, not surprised that they ended up getting a 6.
Right.
And I don't think they got the 6 because of what happened in Nashville. I think they got the 6 because of what happened at the end of the season. I mean, you just don't close out the season looking like you had looked for much of the month of February. And, you know, 5-6, it's going to come down to, cliche, how you play. But it didn't really surprise me that they had fallen. And, yeah, I mean, if you go back, I think it was before the Alabama game.
Right.
When they were people talking, they could work their way up to a 4. Well, since then, they haven't played real good basketball. So the 6, yeah, more disappointing than surprising.
Philadelphia 6 seed.
Yeah, a couple of big losses down the stretch that just kind of kept knocking you down those seed lines. They were in that 4 conversation for a long time. You get knocked down to that 5 after a couple of those losses, and then you can't really make up any ground in the SEC tournament. So yeah, not super surprised they end up on the 6th seed. It is really unfortunate for Rick Barnes and his staff. They're going to have to do double the work in terms of scouting 2 different teams going into the tournament, as opposed to just the one. Well, they will be able to narrow it down following those first 4 games in Dayton.
Your thoughts that you got to wait an additional day depending on how the first 4 plays out?
Well, with Rick Barnes and his staff, I think they're going to be prepared no matter what, because that's just like in a SEC tournament. You know, you may not know if you got a bye, if you got a double, whatever it is, you may not know for sure. I agree with everything that's been said. The other factor, I think, is Nate Ament. What's his situation? How's the ankle? How the ankle hold up? The 6th seed, you know, we talked on the Sunday Sports Source. That was what we kind of figured it would be. You know, you had the chance to move up, I think, if you had beaten Vanderbilt. If you didn't beat Vanderbilt, I think that's about what it was going to be. And I don't think the SEC got a whole lot of respect as a whole. So we'll just have to see how things go from here.
I'll give credit where credit is due. Jerry Palm over at Palm Brackets has been trying to tug on my ear for more than a week. He said, you need to be telling your listeners they're a 6 seed. And maybe I had my Tennessee orange tinted glasses on a little bit, trying to maybe coax a 5 out of it, because I thought that would be a better path for Tennessee than a 5-12.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of these bracketologists, as you pointed out, Bob, Chuck, as you guys, they knew where Tennessee was heading, and unfortunately that arrow was pointing down towards the 6th seed. My initial thoughts were, when I saw that the first Texas split showed up, I was waiting to see where teams like Texas and some of the other bubble teams were going to land. When I saw the Texas draw, I knew immediately Tennessee's getting Miami of Ohio. The question is, would they make Miami of Ohio a play-in game, or were they going to be getting some mix of a just outright play-in game? You see the draw, I immediately don't circle Miami of Ohio. I see SMU and I go, gulp. And on the other side, you have a Virginia team, just comes off a pretty impressive runner-up finish in the ACC championship game Saturday evening in Charlotte. They take on a Wright State team that you're familiar with from the Horizon League. So just to answer the question basic, my original thoughts were, now that I started kind of adjusting to them being a 6 seed, boy, oh boy, and I know we kind of break this down game by game because, Bob, you mentioned it. When they had a chance to beat Alabama, and they let that slip. You go to Missouri middle of the week, you let that slip. Vanderbilt finds a way to be able to get you on senior day. You just kind of saw this team where eventually they would land. I'm going to look back on this season of missed opportunities, but when you see how the brackets played out today, who the 5s were, Tennessee would have done themselves a whole lot of favors had they just been a 5 seed. This is tough for them to see a second.
I mean, this isn't. I mean, people are going to sit back and, well, they didn't respect the SEC enough. They didn't do this, they didn't do that.
Sure.
Well, let's just focus on Tennessee.
Okay.
And Tennessee did this to itself.
Bingo.
I mean, it's not, I don't think, actually, I think the SEC, maybe did a little bit better than I thought they would. You know? So this is a Tennessee thing. You played your way to where you're at, and you did it with your defense being at times just not good, and you did it with the fact that, hey, we're never out of a game. But neither's the other team's never out of a game.
Right.
And so this, I just look at this and already had one friend call and complain. And I said, okay, make your case for Tennessee. Well, his case was, well, it's Tennessee.
It's Tennessee, the brand.
And that's the case that people who don't like this, that's what they got to fall back on, because Tennessee did this to themselves.
They mentioned real quick the SEC not getting as much respect. The final numbers, Oklahoma and Auburn were teams 69 and 70, the first two teams on the bubble that missed out. Looks like that's where you were heading.
Yeah, and I think partly the SEC as a whole kind of did it to itself from their results in the tournament last year. Just a lot of underwhelming performances. Only one team making it out of that first round, and it's Arkansas with Coach Cal. I mean, that is a pedigree of a team. You know, when you have a coach like that, you can expect some better results in the tournament. So it was just disappointment after disappointment last year for the SEC. I'm not entirely surprised that the committee's saying, hey, this year I need you to prove that you deserve to be ranked a little bit higher.
And to get back to looking at that play-in game for 11 seeds, right? You've got SMU is going to be favored, from what I saw, by about 7.5 points.
That's about right.
Over Miami and Dayton, Ohio. And Miami, of course, all of the news, all of the rage, the 31-1.
2 hours separate the campus.
Right. Undefeated for so long in the season, they barely get in the tournament.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from there. And you've already mentioned, before we started talking on camera, about the interesting player for SMU.
There is a chance that the University of Tennessee is going to see an old friend in B.J. Edwards, the Catholic product. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Get it? Pony, Mustangs.
I didn't get it.
I just wanted to lead you there. But I have a feeling if we're asking right now, we'll get more into this because this is a Tennessee focus. If you're watching, and we'll get into the goods and the bads coming up before we wrap things up today, that's where I was going next on this. All the attention this week is going to be Miami of Ohio. 31-1, 362nd toughest schedule. They had the 4th easiest route to getting to the NCAA tournament. Call it a gut feeling. Call this kind of a giveaway tease. I don't know how much longer we're going to be talking about Miami of Ohio. That ACC team in SMU, similar in February like Tennessee, they struggled. And some people question, can you even put a team in the field like SMU? They got power. And if you catch them on the wrong day, boys, you're going to catch yourself sitting and look at the scoreboard, and it's going to be you on the wrong side. Let me ask you this. You guys were going in a good direction. I want to just quickly shave that off. 6 seed, but maybe the conference this year wasn't as high or touted. Had the SEC been as dominant as it was last year, would Tennessee have received the benefit of the doubt? Maybe they would have been bumped up to a 5? Or was this a group effort of your product in February and the rest of the conference didn't have as much gunpowder behind it?
Well, you mentioned last season. 14
SEC, teams. It's the most dominant
got off to
conference
a
of all
great
time.
start. Non-conference game.
Right.
This year, it wasn't quite like that, right? Especially Florida is number 1 seed. They really struggled early.
Yeah, we've had questions.
So that's what happened. I think you've got some teams that are – it's a competitive league. I don't know you've got more than Florida and Arkansas. There's not that many – as many really, really good basketball teams as some other leagues.
Disrespect Alabama in the 4 seed, another story for another time. SEC as a whole, did they lack power this year? Did other teams get penalized for that who did make the field?
Yeah, I think you look at some of the teams that did get bumped up a little higher than maybe some people thought, the North Carolinas, the Texas Techs, teams like that played in some solid conferences with some very good
5 seed who
talent.
lost their best player got a 5 seed who believed some were saying 6-7, but the Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball.
Exactly, and you look at how many dominant performances you've seen from these Big 12 teams. Doesn't seem too surprising that they're going to give those the lower teams in that conference the benefit of the doubt, bump them up a little bit, and the SEC were the ones to suffer for it, especially when they did have so many teams in the field this year.
Haji, last word. They did this to themselves.
Yeah, I thought that the SEC this year was a lot of decent, mediocre basketball. It wasn't great. I thought last year the product during the SEC season was really fantastic. I think this year it was more kind of like, okay, these teams, don't want to be insulting to Tennessee, you got a bunch of Tennessees. You've got a bunch of teams.
That's not unfair.
Hey, these aren't bad basketball teams. Yeah. But I don't think, and I don't even know, Arkansas and Florida, I don't even know about Arkansas totally. Yeah. But I think you've got one really good team, despite the fact what happened to them on Saturday. I think you got one really good team, and then after that, almost everybody has a question mark or 2 or 3. And when I said earlier I didn't think they got disrespected too bad, I was just talking about a lot of people, okay, it's Auburn.
Right.
Last team in, last team out, blah, blah, blah. I mean, would you have had Auburn in your top 64 teams or 68 teams?
No chance.
No, I wouldn't either. So I kind of thought that it sort of went the way I thought it would go. And the SEC this year, I think they've been fairly good, but they last year were a lot better from top to bottom in the league.
Auburn, quickly, for those of you who want to have the Bruce Pearl angle quickly, they had over a dozen opportunities against quad one teams to be able to beat up their resume.
Right.
How many of those games did they win? 4 against those tough opponents. If you win half of them, maybe you're in.
Right.
But yeah, if you're going to serve, you got to clean your plate. If not, we're going to charge you. All right.
Yeah.
Chuck, Bob, Riley, not the last time you're going to hear from us. And there's a good chance, Tennessee fans, I bet you're going to be paying a little bit closer attention to Dayton, Ohio coming up on Wednesday, trying to find out who you'll be meeting in Philadelphia coming up on Friday. John, back to you.
Thank you, Tyler. We are over here at the wall of charts. And if you don't like charts, if you don't understand charts, bear with me. It's only going to take a second. We're just going to try and give you some insights into how Tennessee compares to the other teams in the region, specifically Miami, SMU, and Virginia. Let's just look at it right there. Let's focus on those 3 teams. And what you got on these charts are 2 different stats on each of these. Now, I'll be honest. I like doing a bar chart, which is one thing. But the company I use changed their system today, so I'm stuck using 2 at once. My apologies, but I'll walk you through it. The first thing we're going to look at, adjusted defensive rating and adjusted offense. All that means is who's better at defense, who's better at offense, okay? There's Tennessee. What this is, defense goes this way, offense goes up and down. So you want to be here and here. Well, no wonder. Number 1 seed Michigan, they're really good offensively, they're really good defensively. So is Iowa State, the number 2 seed. Virginia, the 3 seed, they play better offense than Tennessee, but Tennessee plays better defense. So in terms of the teams you're going to play in the first half, in the first round, you got Miami of Ohio and SMU down here. They're both a little better offensively than Tennessee. What does that mean for Miami in terms of the conference they play in? I know, I get it, but just by the numbers, they're a little bit better than Tennessee offensively. But look at Tennessee's defense compared to those 2. So in terms of a first-round matchup, you got to like Tennessee's defense being able to strangle those guys. We'll get more into that as we go. Virginia, right here, more of a tough matchup for the Vols. Although I said earlier, of all the 3s, that one doesn't scare me. It's still going to be a tough matchup. None of these will be a breeze. But anyway, you now see Tennessee plays better defense than all these teams. In terms of offense, Virginia, SMU better than Tennessee, Miami just barely better than Tennessee, but maybe that's because of the conference they're in. Let's take a look at the next one. Rebound differential. We know Tennessee's dominant rebounding with the basketball, don't we? Yes, way dominant. How dominant? Look at all this space between you before you even get to 1 seed Michigan, before you get to 3 seed Virginia. Now, if you face Virginia in the second round, well, you could make the case they're the second best rebounding team in the region. Does that bode well? I don't know. But in terms of overall, you are far better than them overall for the entire season. And in terms of one game, maybe that works in your favor. SMU down here, Miami way down there. So if Tennessee draws Miami in that first round game, expect the Vols to have a massive, massive advantage in terms of rebounding. Free throw attempt differential. Now, Tennessee hasn't been great at hitting free throws this year, but they have gotten a lot more attempts than their opponent. You want to be up here. They're close. They're above the center line, if you will. So in terms of free throw attempts, Miami gets a lot. Is that going to be the case when they're out of their conference and playing in a big game? And then SMU, not so much. They bang around in the ACC. So does Virginia. So in terms of free throw attempt differential, Tennessee should be better than Virginia or SMU. But who knows? It all depends on what the refs are calling on that day. And if they let them play, that's a concern, of course, because you're hoping Nate Ament is a guy who gets to the free throw line quite a bit. He's elite. He's one of the top 50 players in the country. Of all the players in college basketball, he's top 50 in getting to the free throw line. Well, if you get into one of these games and the refs let them play, all right, that might not be advantage Tennessee. You want them with a tight whistle because Tennessee usually takes advantage of that and gets to the free throw line a little bit more. All right, and then let's just look at shooting, okay, just where these teams shoot. So this is not volume. This is how teams actually shoot in the paint in terms of possible first-round matchups. Miami, they shoot 59% as their effective field goal percentage. Dark red means they are hot in these areas. Points in the paint, they get a lot. In terms of outside shooting, right here, right elbow is where they shoot. SMU, 55.7 is their effective field goal percentage. Pretty good. And while not as great points in the paint as Miami, it is pretty good. And they shoot from the right hand. They're not as good a three-point shooting team as Miami. Then you got Tennessee. 51.6 is their effective field goal percentage. Better, worse. In terms of points in the paint, yeah, they get a lot of points in the paint in total, but it takes them a lot of shots to get there. As you can see, there's blues, there's light pinks in there. They're not tearing it up the way Miami does. Again, they're playing the SEC, they're playing their conference, Mid-America. So it's a little different. But still, in terms of shooting, these teams are pretty good. Now the trick is they like to shoot it from inside rather than just kill it from the outside. So if you can build a lead on them, if you take advantage on the glass, Tennessee should be in good shape in that first-round game. Speaking of first-round games and just tournament in general, let's kick it over to Mark Pankratz and Buzz Peterson. And they're going to take a look at the tournament from a coaching perspective as they shoot some hoops. Mark.
All right, thanks, John. So, Coach, talk to us about what it's like behind the scenes as a coach. You see your school's name go up there, that you're going to know what your seed's going to be, where you're going in the NCAA team, who the matchup's going to be. Talk us through what that week looks like in preparation.
It's an exciting time for everybody. Good shot, by the way. It's a very exciting time for all the coaches, the butterflies. You got to manage yourself, though. You got to be able to. You're getting all these phone calls from everybody, want tickets, congratulations, all that stuff. But you got to stay focused on your team and get prepared. We're in Tennessee's situation. You got 2 teams, which makes it even more. So you got a big staff. You got to let them handle it.
Yeah. Well, my first early years, I was the director of scouting. And so director of scouting, we had all the teams that we could play as potential, in this instance, a 5 or 6 seed, and we'd have them all, back in the day there was VHSs or CDs. You'd have all of them kind of coupled. So that way, as soon as we got that team that we were going to play, the coaching staff could immediately go to start watching whatever teams we could play. And then, as we talked about, it's not even just the team that you know you're going to play. You're getting prepared for the team that you could be playing in that second round.
That's right.
And you're watching game after game. You're on the horn calling all your coaching buddies in their league. If they'll give you some insight of whoever's on their schedule, you're calling them saying, hey, give me the scouting report. Can you share with me their play calls? You're trying to get as much information as you can in a short period of time.
Well, the technology has picked up so much nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, you got so many things you can grab. Back in the older days, I mean, you were trying to get film from people just to watch who you're going to play. So, but it's like I said before, it's managing everything. The NCAA decides when you fly out and when you leave on a plane. They decide where you're staying on the seats. So you don't know, you got to figure out which hotel you're going to. Then you got to get into all the meals and everything. So it's a lot to prepare for before you play this basketball game. And then you start getting into the personnel of the teams and all that stuff. So, but yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's just like if you're a basketball junkie, this is the best time of year. I mean, you love it. You got so many tournaments going on, and it's just the one thing that's so exciting about college basketball and everything. It's one and done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the NBA where you got a best of 5 or best of 7. It's one and
that's right.
done.
That's right. That's a bucket. Well, and here's what you know, and it's so much about, from a coaching perspective, you got to get prepared. But how do we get our kids prepared? And I remember we'd try to watch as much tape as we could. We'd stay all night at the arena, and then kids would have practice or school the next day. And in preparation, we're going to put a clip tape together, a highlight tape together, to be able to show the team. And it wasn't about that we would need to know everything about the opposing team that we were going to play, but we had to give the guys something.
Yeah.
Because if we get them something and they could see, okay, this is the tendencies of this player, that's the tendency of this player, or here's some of the basic stuff, that the guys' confidence would grow because they want to know. The best players, they want to know what they're going to go up against. But as a coach, you know what it's about. It's mostly about your team.
That's right.
And are you going to be ready? Are you in the right mental?
Yeah.
Are you handling the tickets and all the things the right way?
Mark, you just made me think of something. It's your team. You know what your team can do. Years ago when I played for Coach Smith in the early 80s, we never saw a film of our opponent. He just believed in what we did, what we're going to do. We're going to do really good, and you can't take us out of it.
Yeah.
Get in the hotel room, we couldn't watch the games on TV. We're not allowed to. The TVs were gone. Wow. So there was you had no iPad. You had, you just had a book, or you had your roommate to talk to. That was it.
Yeah.
The TVs were out of there. So he wanted us to stay focused on our team and what we did, and it's going to take you out of your offense.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
It is different these days. I think now these guys are so inundated with social media and all the stuff. I mean, the access that they have to, and a lot of these guys have, maybe some of them even played against each other, not just in AAU, but in the transfer portal these days. These guys have played against each other. But talk us through, so now you travel to your opposing location. So for Tennessee, they're going to be up in Philly. So you land. Now what does that typical day look like before the game day is actually here? What are you doing in the hotel, pregame meal? Do you get to shoot around at the arena? Do you have to go somewhere else? What does that typically look like?
More than likely you're going to get only 30 minutes at that arena. You know how it's been like that. So you got to find a college or something to go to get your shots or have a good practice more than anything else. And then you want to make sure the players get to see their families. You got a lot of time for that. But then you want to turn around and get them focused on getting prepared for that game. So it's, again, like I've said, it's an exciting time. You got to prepare for your meals when they're going to eat. Who's the roommates? I think that's important. Who stays in the same room with one another. So a lot that goes into it. So, but it's, you know what? It's, like I said, it's just such an exciting time.
Were you a superstitious guy, Coach? Were you superstitious?
Oh Lord, yeah.
What's one superstition thing? Because I know for me, like when we're in the NCAA tournament, if I didn't see any upsets, I'd be like, oh man, there's coming. I hope we don't get upset. Yeah. And then if you did get an upset, I'd think the same thing. If I saw another team get upset, I'm like, oh man, there's going to be a lot of upsets this year. So what's a superstitious thing that maybe when it came to NCAA tournament time?
You know, one thing that I was always, I don't know why I did it, but I would always, when I was coach, I'd get down on one knee. Yeah. And when one of my guys were shooting a free throw, I would take my index finger, and if I could get down on my knee, I'd do it now, but I would hit the floor like this, I'd rub it. Yeah. And just, I don't know why I did it. When they hit it, I would only one clap. Okay. Like that. Because to me, in a tournament like this, free throws are so important. Yeah. You've got to make it.
Don't say that about this Tennessee team.
Well, you got to make those free throws, and we know. Mark,
I'll make one right now then. Okay.
We know you got to have good guard play. That's very important. So you've got to have that, and plus you got to knock those free throws down.
Yeah. Well, what I'm excited to see this year is how do these guys handle the environment? Because you go to Pittsburgh, it's a different vibe in there. When it's NCAA tournament, Philly, it's a different vibe in there. When you go to that arena and you're watching the teams play before you, if there's an upset, the crowd starts cheering for the underdog.
Like we got here.
So Tennessee's going to be the favorite. If they start getting behind, they're going to be cheering for that. That's
right. They want to see them lose. And I tell you what, sometimes the depth perception, some of these big arenas, it's a little bit different, and especially when you're shooting from the corner, it can be a little bit different. So, you know, you don't get a lot of time to go in there and get those shots up, to get familiarity with it. So sometimes that depth perception can mess with some minds.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's our time that we got to wrap it up.
There you go. There you go.
Out here. But that was awesome. Great insight, Coach. I appreciate it.
All right, here we go. Let's go. Let's hit 5 in a row.
All right, let's go.
There's one. There's two, three. Oh, missed it. All right, we're done.
Tyler, we'll go back to you, Tyler. Thanks, guys.
Gentlemen, we appreciate it. Back here in the lounge, Chuck, Bob, Riley, Tyler. Gentlemen, it's Philadelphia. You look at the matchup potentially against an ACC foe, an SMU team who, similarities to February, we already touched on that a little bit, Miami of Ohio. We got a little bit of a clarification. There were insiders who were saying, oh, they're the last team in. They were a bid stealer away from not making the tournament. Then the chairman of the selection committee came out and said, no. They were the first of our last teams in. So they had them over Texas. They had them some over like the SMUs of the world. So Miami was safe and sound to be able to get in for people out there who were like, my goodness, you're getting the last team in. Let's just look at Philadelphia as a whole. And we'll say Virginia Wright State for another time. Tennessee, where they sit right now, they're in the NCAA tournament field. Rick Barnes extends the 5th longest streak of active coaches reaching March Madness. I've said it once and I'll say it again. He is one of the most underappreciated coaches in the sport, and nobody will appreciate what he's done in Knoxville until he's retired.
110.
So here we are with Tennessee. Well, I'll start with you, Chuck. The University of Tennessee, they are a 6th seed, but they are in postseason play. Right. But there are a lot of Tennessee fans that have seen where their season has ended each of the last 2 years. Yeah. On the doorstep of the Final Four. They're at the Elite Eight. Indianapolis. And you're a 6th seed, and there are a lot of people who go, you brought in a player like Nate Ament. There's somebody who cut that check for him. Right. He's supposed to be the difference maker. Chuck Cavaliers, without kind of giving it away, your thoughts on Tennessee not only trying to retread a path they've been on each of the last 2 years, but how realistic is Indianapolis based on at least your starting point in the city of Philadelphia?
Well, I was really hoping for the South in Greenville, to be honest with you. And we talked about on the Sports Source Sunday show. Going to Philadelphia, you just don't have the same feeling of the direction Tennessee basketball is headed.
Right.
And I think in covering the Lady Vols for 3 years and been around Pat Summitt, so much is about your team and getting your team ready. You get into the opponent, yeah. Do you really feel good about how Tennessee is going? We mentioned the injury to Nate Ament. How's he going to be? Because a lot of people feel like the Vols will go as far as he can carry him.
Yeah.
And that's an 18-year-old true freshman. So, and then Jacoby Gillespie is your other main threat, right? After that, who's going to give you points on a consistent basis over a game? I'm not looking at after that. So I was a little bit disappointed that you didn't get that 5 seed. I expected a 6. I was disappointed that you're going to Philly. Maybe Tennessee still has a lot of fans go. I think more would have gone to Greenville, South Carolina.
It seems like he was going down a path I was going to get to later in this segment, but now's a good time to walk through that door. Jacoby Gillespie, Nate Ament. I didn't expect us to find an answer to who the number 3 scorer is going to be. It doesn't sound like we have an answer for the number 3 scorer. Can Tennessee make a legitimate run through Philadelphia to regional play, Final Four without that number 3 scorer?
Look, I think you can absolutely get by whoever your first round opponent ends up being. If it is SMU, if it is Miami of Ohio, I think you could beat either of those teams, both right there at the bottom when it comes to strength of schedule for all of these tournament teams. Are you going to have as easy of a time against Virginia? I don't think so. Not if you are entirely reliant on Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament for your scoring. Those two are great players. They can do a lot for you. They're not going to be able to carry you past a team like Virginia, who has just been, like you said, one game away from winning the ACC. Yeah. Pretty surprising conference.
People thought there was going to be a little bit more of a setback when Tony Bennett retired. Absolutely not. Ryan Odom came in just like his dad did at Wake Forest and said, I'll clean this up. 2 years later, flip the script. Number 3 scorer. Does this end up being a problem for Tennessee? We've talked about it Sundays.
What I'm going to do? I'm going to put a positive spin on my negative answer.
Let's go.
It is a problem. Okay. It has been a problem all season. But I think in the end, and I know we're talking brackets and future games and all this later on.
Right.
Tennessee's biggest problem is Tennessee.
Yes.
And is there a third scorer going to emerge? Probably not now. There's not going to be one. But Tennessee, in many of its games, has put – I tell you what, I don't care about a third scorer. When you get an offensive rebound and the basket is a foot and a half away from you and you're not scoring, Tennessee's problems to me don't come down to, well, there's no third scorer.
Yeah.
It comes down to you don't have enough other guys. I don't need to see somebody else put in 17 points besides Ament Gillespie. Let's have 2 other guys put in 9 points apiece. But you don't see that enough. And so, no, I'm going to say that isn't Tennessee's biggest problem. Tennessee's biggest problem is what's the best game that Tennessee has played in the past 3 weeks? I'll answer it for you.
South Carolina.
Well, South Carolina doesn't count.
Right,
because South Carolina's terrible.
Yeah.
They played very well against Alabama.
They did.
But you still managed to give that game away despite the fact that if you look down the stat line, everything was in your favor.
Everything.
And so, I just think it doesn't come down for Tennessee to one thing. I don't think if all of a sudden Estrella in the NCAA tournament becomes your third guy, hot diggity dang, we're getting 17, 18 points, 12 points, 14 every game from him. I don't think that fixes your problem because you've got problems that crop up everywhere at different times.
I think your problem is you just don't shoot the ball well enough.
Right.
Whether it's free throws, whether it's field goals. Bob, to your point, I heard this stat the other day. In terms of getting an offensive rebound, right? So that's one missed shot. Tennessee misses the second shot, the putback, when you're right there. And in missing those 2 shots, offensive rebound and then the follow-up shot, Tennessee ranks 207th in the country. How are you going to advance in the NCAA tournament?
It's a hell of a nugget.
Yeah. And then you add in a few turnovers. If you're not taking care of the ball and you're not hitting field goals or free throws, you're going to be toast against somebody.
And it seems like one of these pieces every game is what your Achilles is. Hey, you hit your free throws. You had 15 turnovers. Yeah. Hey, you only turned it over 6 times. Well, you went 14 out of 25 at the free throw line. So Tennessee just doesn't consistently put everything together. So I'm going to go away from the third scorer, let's call it the third scorer fallacy, and go with it's everything else.
Tell me how believable this scenario is that I'm drawing on. The win against Auburn in Nashville, Nate Ament came out in the second half and said, "Get on my back, losers. I'll take us to the finish line." What a performance. Nate's healthy. He looks incredible. Let's fast forward to the next day, Friday against Vanderbilt. Nate was held scoreless until he got to the free throw line 8 to 10 times in the second half. But Nate not being in that game and not having at least his foot on the throat of the opponent like he did against Auburn, that ended up being the difference. I remember growing up as a kid, and I watched players like Carmelo Anthony took over the 03 tournament for Syracuse. I watched Kemba Walker, a guy at UConn, take over a tournament. How believable is this? Unless Nate Ament becomes Superman for 6 days, or as some coaches will call it, 3 two-game tournaments. Unless Nate Ament turns this into his personal sandbox in Philadelphia, next location, Tennessee's cooked. How realistic is it that Nate Ament makes this year's NCAA tournament his highlight reel for the NBA draft of, did you watch this kid take over the NCAA tournament? How realistic is it that Nate Ament carries Tennessee? In years past, yeah, it was Dalton Connect, but he had a cast. Yeah, it was Chaz Lanier, but he had a cast. How realistic is that Nate Ament goes into a phone booth, comes out with the Superman S on it and says, "Let's go, guys"?
I don't think that's going to happen. Now, he may be able to carry Tennessee, but he won't put on a Superman suit.
Yes. Take his glasses off. Yeah.
Well, go ahead. What do you?
No, and I'm right there with him. I just don't think it's very likely that Nate Ament does that. He's not going to be that player.
That stretch during the regular season in January through the beginning of February, we were talking about Jacoby Gillespie. Oh my God, Nate Ament can be the SEC Player of the Year. He went through a 9-game, 10-game stretch where you went, that's worth the price of admission.
I'll tell you how I would answer the question, is how healthy is he?
Right.
He looked pretty darn healthy in Nashville.
He did. And, okay, was the next day because something wasn't quite right?
Sure.
Was it just one of them days?
Sure.
Who knows? But if you told me, you guarantee me Nate Ament at 100% perfect health during a tournament, there's no tweaks, there's no twists, there's nothing. I would say the odds of him being that guy, I would put it somewhere over 25%.
Yeah.
I think he could be that good. But then the explanation for what happened against Vanderbilt on Friday, to me, that was, okay, is he not quite there? Is something not quite right?
Well, they were very, very physical with
They made sure to pin him in a corner.
And that was that. And look, Nate's got an ankle, he's got a knee, he's got a hip, and whatever else.
He's got 2 of each.
But that's what's been hurting it. It's not just one thing, I think.
Yeah.
If you saw the way he got bent back over on that play, the knee was already bothering him. Then it was the ankle was what he was having 3 treatments a day, right? 3 treatments a day just to get ready for the SEC tournament.
Right.
So to me, the book is you just got to be really physical.
Well,
off the ball, all over the court, and that's what Vanderbilt did.
Then I'll walk back my answer slightly. Okay. Tell me what kind of whistle you're going to have,
brother. That's what it is every March, isn't it?
I mean, if they come out and it is ticky-tacky, touchy, and we're going to call it, then Nate Ament could go for 30 every game. If they come out and do the wrestling thing, no, then I think his chances are pretty slim of being able to be the Superman
At least the good thing is it's not going to be another SEC crew, right?
Brother.
You're done with him. So I think it has to get better. I'm hoping it gets better.
If I see another Joe Lindsay efficient game today, I think I might lose my lunch. Bob, Chuck, Riley, Tyler, the next time you see the 4 of us, official predictions. How far is Tennessee cutting down the nets? Does Rick put up a Final Four banner for the first time in the history of hoops on Rocky Top? We'll tell you coming up before we wrap things up.
This show is brought to you by Hearthside Bank. Visit hearthsidebank.com today.
All right, back at the big board right now, and we've got Bob Hodge, we've got Riley Holton, we've got Tyler Ivins right there. I want to talk about your thoughts on where Tennessee is going, your thoughts. I know you've been discussing the bracket. You've discussed how Tennessee is looking at the end of the season, but now you've got it in front of you. What stands out about the Volunteers taking on the winner of SMU Miami, then Virginia? I was saying with Mark Pankratz and Buzz Peterson earlier that in terms of overall draws, this isn't the nightmare it could have been in terms of the bracket if you go down the line.
Right.
Whether or not Tennessee can go down that line, we'll see. Tyler, your thoughts?
Immediately, I know everybody wants to talk about the Miami, Ohio angle. Cinderella, you should love it. Cinderellas are back in a sport where they want to expand or they want to cram Power 4, Power 5 Big East teams down our throat. I believe SMU is a tough draw for the University of Tennessee. I believe that SMU, similarity to Tennessee, they struggled in February, so a lot of people are writing them off. Oh, why are they that good? They were in a play-in game. SMU showed this year when they're healthy, they've got one of the best backcourts in college basketball. ACC teams can attest to that. I think it's already tough because you don't know who your opponent's going to be till Wednesday night at best. Getting ready for one of these two teams in a 36, 40-hour period will be even more difficult.
I also think, and we talked about this a little on our Sunday show, Tennessee and their style of play, coming from a power conference, if they drew an Akron, I don't know that an Akron's going to be ready for that. Right. I mean, I'm not saying they can't pull an upset, but what I'm saying is you may have a chance to intimidate somebody. SMU coming out of the ACC, they've seen you. They've seen Tennessee-type teams all year long. Riley, your thoughts on this bracket and the pull for the Vols?
Yeah, I think either way you go here, whoever comes out of the gate, and for Tennessee, it's going to be a tough draw. Look, Miami, say what you want, the strength of schedule, yada, yada. They're winners. They won more road games than Auburn had played at one point.
Yeah, 8-2 in the year, yeah.
And that was the big argument between those two. So ultimately, look, that's the team that wins. They know how to win, and they shoot really well. SMU, on the other hand, look, it's a good team. It's a good team, top to bottom. You've got some guys down low for SMU that are going to give Tennessee some trouble, I think, if you run into them. But regardless of who the draw is there, I do think Tennessee has the skills to be able to get past there into the round of 32.
Bob, I'll ask you first. Does Tennessee get right here?
You know what? I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say that I think Rick Barnes is less worried about who comes out of this game than he is Tennessee. I mean, I think whoever comes out, you're late on getting down and getting your book on them and getting ready for them. But I think going into this week, Rick Barnes' concentration will be on Tennessee. And if you found out who this was 30 minutes before you played them, I still think it's Rick Barnes convincing his guys that their best basketball needs to be right now.
Okay. But you do have them going to 32.
I'm going to have them getting here.
Riley, you too?
I've got them advancing past probably SMU.
You troublemaker, you. You like SMU to knock them off?
SMU. They've got a
B.J. Edwards.
He's the sixth man that I think completes
Revenge.
what they're doing. The reason why they slipped up and they went 4-4 in the month of February. I mean, it's a nice storyline to tie in from his time when he was on the roster. But what they can do with Boopie Miller and what they can do with JPJ, I can go through not only the backcourt, what they have in Miami and Ohio, what Virginia could also bring to them at the field of 32. You only asked about the first game. Okay. That SMU team and Miami, both top 25 in college basketball in field goal percentage. They find high percentage shots. They hit high percentage shots. Tennessee, no matter who they play, they're going to have to make sure they find whoever that scorer is. Hence the reason why we kind of talked about Ament maybe needed to take over a game.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. I think they're going to have him give a Herculean effort. But before I trust them, I mean, they can win without him. They can win without him going off. They're a much better team when he does go off. So yes. I think they're going to get past SMU or Miami.
I want to be wrong.
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if Miami took them. I just think Tennessee's wildly inconsistent.
Exactly.
Right.
Nothing will shock me.
Right. I'm also not going to be surprised if they get through here. Let's say they do. Since three of the four say they do get past that and they make it to the second round. And let's say you get Virginia there. Again, we looked this morning. I'd rather have Virginia than Gonzaga.
Absolutely.
I'd rather, there are a lot of 3 seeds I wouldn't want to see there.
Yeah.
Virginia, okay, I'll take my chances. I still don't think I see this team making it to a Sweet 16, though. I know you don't. But what do you think about Tennessee-Virginia in that matchup, if that was the matchup that popped up there?
It's similar to the SMU. Virginia's got an experienced backcourt. Here's my problem with it. We talked about it Sundays. We talked about it Mondays when you join us on the radio. This is the point in time where Tennessee not having a true point guard is going to come back to haunt them. When it's clutch time, when Rick's talking to you with 90 seconds to go and you look up, you have the possession arrow, but you don't have any timeouts, who's going to be the closer on the floor? I need somebody who can get that team together going. No turnovers, be smart, don't foul. I don't know if Tennessee has a floor general. And in March, two things Tennessee struggles with, hitting free throws and who's the leadership on this team. That's crucial for me. That's
Does anybody
massive.
here, Riley, do you have a strong feeling that Tennessee makes it to the Sweet 16?
No.
Okay.
It's just too many inconsistent aspects to this team. Correct. I really do like that they have cut down a little bit on those turnovers as they've kind of closed out the season. Now, some other issues have cropped up here and there as that's happened. It feels like you kind of control one leak and then another one pops out.
Yes.
That's what it's been like for this team. So if they can get a couple of those under control at a time, I think they do have the ability to beat Virginia. I wouldn't be shocked if they beat Virginia. I just don't think it's the most likely.
Quickly, you've taught me before, instead of looking at teams and what you're good at, look at the holes. That's what makes us in other sports the fans that we are. If you take on a Virginia team and you think that you can be lazy with the basketball, not many teams turn more points off turnovers in Virginia basketball. What Ryan Odom's been able to do since getting there, it's night and day difference.
Yeah, I heard you talking about it earlier. I expected a bit of a drop off there.
Yep.
I was wrong.
I'll tell you what, tell me how Tennessee plays in this game, and I can tell you how they play against Virginia. I want them to stink
And to sneak
win
behind.
and get here, because that team has been wildly inconsistent.
Yeah.
Not only do they rarely play two really good games in a row, or they haven't since January and into February, they typically don't play two terrible games in a row either. So if you can play bad here, hey, yeah, because now I think you got a better chance of winning here, because you don't lay two stinkers in a row typically with this team.
So three of us have them going here. Tyler has them going here. Not going any further than the first round. Okay, and we do think it's possible they could go further, but
yes.
more than likely, it's just hard to back a team that's got as many
The highs
holes.
and the lows.
It could be the turnovers that take you down one night. It could be the missed free throws that take you down one night. It could be the lack of a third score that take you down one night. It could be Jacoby Gillespie not being great with the ball that takes you down one night. There's just a lot of things. We've gone into these tournaments before, and it's like, well, if this doesn't go Tennessee's way, they could be out.
Right.
It seems like this year there are a lot more, if this doesn't go Tennessee's way, or this one, or this, which is why you had a team that lost 11 games this year and is a 21 seed instead of a 4 seed or 5 seed, 6 seed.
The reason I think Tennessee has a puncher's chance, though, to go farther than we think is because offensively, they can be better than a lot of these Rick Barnes teams we've seen in the past 4 or 5 years.
The problem is they're not as
good defensively.
Yeah.
But what has typically cost them in these games hadn't been their defense. It's been the fact that their offense goes into a swoon and you lose. So that's the reason I give them more of a chance to get farther than maybe some other people do, because your offense can be better than typical.
That, and as everybody knows in Knoxville, you're always Mr. Positive.
Exactly.
Bob Hodge, Riley Hall.
A ray of sunshine.
And Tyler Evans, thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you doing this with us. We'll be talking about the basketball tournament and the Vols path, radio, TV, everywhere we can be here on the Sports Source Digital Network as well. When we come back right after this, I'm going to bring the other guys in here. We're going to do their picks. We'll wrap this show up next.
This show is brought to you by Games and Things. Visit OurGameRoom.com to make your room look like our room.
And boom, welcome back. It was a quick break, and now we've changed out the guys. We've got Buzz Peterson, Chuck Cavaliers, Mark Pankratz here to do the final predictions. And I want to go ahead, and we already did the last segment, and the majority of the guys, not everyone, but the majority of the guys had Tennessee making it to the second round. Now, Tyler Evans had them out in the first round, but most of us had them right here. Let me talk to you guys. What do you see in this first round game? Or whether it's SMU or Miami. Look, you're familiar with SMU from watching the ACC. How do you feel about this first round matchup?
I like Tennessee's chances. SMU has only won one of their last 6 games. All right, but they are led by a bunch of transfers, really. Boopie Miller, Wake Forest. Pierre was at Jack State. Edwards, Tennessee, and then you had Washington coming from Wichita State. So, but they got some good guys, big guys inside, can match up a little bit. Miami, Ohio. Before their loss to UMass in the tournament, they won 3 games by a total of 6 points. 2 each game, and 1 game was overtime. So that's a good match. I mean, it's a good spot for Tennessee. These teams aren't really playing that great.
Well, you talk about one of our challenges is guarding ball screen defense, and you look at both these teams have really good guards. Miami's scarier for me because they can spread you out with shooters. SMU's got different pieces, but Miami can spread you out. A lot of guys shoot. What's interesting about both these teams, they got at least 3 double-digit scores. Tennessee struggles when they got guys that can spread it around. But I do like, if we do play Miami of Ohio, I like our physicality to be able to beat a Miami of Ohio and dominate those offensive rebounds.
Chuck, you taking them to the second round here? They getting past the first round?
Here's the thing with Miami, Ohio, they're playing at Dayton. What kind of advantage is that? It's not home court, but there's going to be a crowd advantage, I think. SMU, former Tennessee player B.J. Edwards, when they had that losing streak, they lost 4 games after he injured his ankle February 25th. So they have a guard rotation. They want to get up and down the floor. Their games they've lost is when it was more of a slower tempo. So, I like Tennessee in that game, and I think they can handle either one of those opponents, SMU or Miami.
All right, so we're going to push Virginia here. I think we all assume Virginia will take care of Wright State.
Right.
Never assume. But Tennessee versus Virginia. Look, I think Tennessee can win that game. I don't think there's any question. If Nate Ament goes off, if Tennessee's humming on all cylinders, we've seen that this year. I could see that. I just don't trust Tennessee. They've been too inconsistent. As I said in the last segment, there's a lot of different things that can go wrong for them that undercut them. So it's tough for me to push them through into the Sweet 16. I'm not going to. The last group didn't. Bob Hodge came the closest to doing it. Anybody here take Tennessee over Virginia? What about you? Carolina Tar Heel you.
I mean, Virginia's good. I said it earlier. Of their last 15 games, they've won 13 on loss to the team over in Durham. Yeah. So they're good. They've got some experience. They got good guard play. They got size. The 2 foreign kids. And the kid was at Kentucky. I like Virginia a lot.
If Tennessee somehow doesn't play well and win their first round matchup, I'm gonna take Tennessee over Virginia because we're due to play well. We're so inconsistent. We'll play well. But I'm gonna go with Tennessee. I think Tennessee will be able to score enough with some other guys. I think Jacoby will step up. If you look at Jacoby, we talk about not having a point guard and turn the basketball over. Jacoby's assist-to-turnover ratio is over 2+1. I mean, he's doing a good job taking care of the ball, especially later down the season. I think Tennessee's got a chance to beat Virginia.
Okay. Chuck, what are you doing? If it's Tennessee, Virginia, you'd be the deciding factor.
Okay. It's not Tony Bennett's Virginia basketball team. Virginia averaged 47% of their shots are three-pointers. They led the ACC in defense. They've got 7 guys that average at least 8 points. I mean, you add all those things together. If Virginia were to have a terrible shooting game, and Tennessee's three-point defense is the best it's ever been, here's one other thing. Virginia is 6th in the country in second chance scoring. So can they put the ball back in I think you have to go. I'd love to take Tennessee. Can they win? I think a lot of things have to fall right. And one last point. Okay. I don't like Tennessee.
12 more points.
One more. I don't like Tennessee in the turnaround games. We saw it in the SEC tournament. Yeah. I don't like that as another factor to look at.
Okay. Let me get you guys to clear out a little bit then. Let's bring the homer in here. Mark?
All right.
So, Kentucky, Iowa State. If you've got Tennessee here.
Yep.
That's good handwriting right there. At least this shows I'm not that much smaller than these guys, though. All right, so if Tennessee's right here, you got Iowa State here or you got Kentucky here?
I would take Iowa State. I would. I don't know. These guys may take somebody else, but
is that where it ends, or do you have Tennessee to the Elite Eight? How big of a homer are you going to be?
I would take Iowa State, but also the other side. If the shoe's on the other foot, I guarantee you Virginia's looking at, my gosh, we could have to play Tennessee.
Yeah.
Iowa State's, my gosh, we'd have to play Tennessee. So, but I do think Iowa State would be able to knock us off.
Well, and we talked about this too in terms of you're just reading a bracket wall here. You go back to 2010, Tennessee's first Elite Eight trip. Tennessee was a 6 seed. And a 6 seed is the lowest seed they have had under Rick Barnes. But 6 seed in 2010, Tennessee gets by the 11th seed San Diego State team by 3 points. That was a close game. San Diego State almost took them out. Georgetown was the 3 seed. They lost to Ohio. Tennessee gets Ohio, the 14 seed. Then you knock off Ohio State. You go into that tournament thinking, well, this hasn't been Bruce Pearl's best team here. And I think you would agree.
Yeah,
they'd been blown out by Kentucky in the SEC tournament. Had some fighting at the end of that one. It was an ugly game. That was nobody's favorite Tennessee team until the tournament, and they make the Elite Eight. That changes everything. So who knows? Maybe this is going to be another one of those years where Rick Barnes and Tennessee kind of erases what you've seen so far. They get hot at the right time. The matchups fall their way, and they make a run.
That's right.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Buzz Peterson, Chuck Cavaleris, Mark Pankratz, I want to thank all of you for watching and being with us today. Follow the tournament right here on the Sports Source Digital Network, on the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff, on Sunday Sports Source. Anything where you see the word Sports Source, we'll be talking tournament. We'll be talking about spring football as well. Stick around and be sure to subscribe. We appreciate that. Subscribe, like it if you made it to the end. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time right back here on the Sports Source Digital Network.